This is Jarvis Leatherby of the heavy metal band Night Demon, and you are experiencing Poppitt's Corner.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Poppitt's Corner. Always excited to bring on the main songwriter of the band Haunt. It is Mr. Trevor William Church. Trevor, how you doing today, sir? Thanks for giving me a couple minutes of your time. I hope you're doing well, man.
Absolutely, man. Great to be back with you, my friend. It's good to see you.
Always a pleasure. How you been before we get this interview started?
Been good, just staying busy. Got all kinds of projects in this. Oh.
That was that was a good one. But so you work. Obviously we're gonna talk about the windows of your heart record. But
yeah,
are you? Let me just ask you right off the bat, because before this conversation was recorded or whatever, before we hit record, we were talking about your dad's book. I didn't even know something like this was happening. So can you give me some information on what's going on in terms of that camp?
Absolutely. So last year I started talking with my dad about his life and kind of getting something documented. He had some interest from some Japanese publisher a while back, and it just didn't really seem like it was happening. And I was just kind of like, is this gonna happen? Are you gonna get this going? You got to get it going. You're 70 some odd fucking years old now. You ain't getting any younger. And I don't want to be the only person on the planet that knows the story of the Electric Church, even though who better to tell it than me, right? The fucking heavy metal dude, So, it's also a weird thing, being as a bassist, usually you don't get a book when you're the bass player. It's kind of like those motherfuckers are a forgotten thing. And I thought it would be the music world would love to see or to read about what it's like from a bass player's perspective, especially a bass player that was technically Sammy's number 2. He's the only dude on all those records that he did, and was Sammy's right-hand man in the studio, getting the guys fucking polished and tight, So he was a very key figure in all this. And so I started going down a list of some authors that pen some books and stuff, and started realizing we might not be able to do this. This is fucking expensive. Do people buy books? For me, the only book I fucking read are rock books. I have very little interest in time to read much anything else. So these kind of books, this is right up my alley. So I'm really stoked that I got Martin Popoff, the fucking man, to get on board with this, and at a incredibly reasonable rate, which I obviously he's a dude, is a master of his craft and knows how to get it done, and probably knows how to get it done inexpensively, because obviously heavy metal is not exactly buying Ferraris anymore. You know what I'm saying? It'll buy you a Prius, It's different times. Might not even buy you Prius. You're lucky if you get the Prius. Anyway, so so with that, I really wanted, I've read a lot since I've read quite a few. I've read Sammy's, and I'm in my mind, part of me is well, who wants to read Sammy's bass player shit when you got Sammy Hagar shit, right? You already know there's a story right there. But what Sammy's book reads like a fucking Donahue soap opera to me. And it doesn't really scream. It's very narcissistic and kind of egomaniacal all throughout. And some of the things he says about his family nearly makes me sick, kind of. I'm I would never fucking say that about my son. There's some shit in there that is questionable. Those of you that haven't read Red, if you read it, I caution you, it is soap opera village. It's literally just riddled with shit talking and things that I had to put it. When I got to the Van Halen section, I put it down. I was done. I was just this is enough. When he starts trashing on him, I'm just bro, you are no fucking better. Let's not, like, you've lost the reader right here. Gone. I don't ever need to come back to it. So I wanted a book about, I told my dad, I was like, I know you got soap opera, because my dad is fucking super controversial person. He's just he'll poke at you to get a rise out of you kind of guy. And then be like, I was fucking with you. You know what I mean? Like, he knows how to, like, he'll push your button just to mess with you. And so I know my dad has a very tumultuous as far as things go, and his dramas and how extreme he's going to be about it. So I really wanted him to focus on what I thought music people would be interested in, and that is like the creation of how these projects started. So origin, and then talking about the gears they used, the studio experience, the tour, what the tour was like, that kind of shit, and like leaving money, leaving all that bullshit out, leaving the sex. Like, it's kind of weird because we kind of left the sex, drugs out and just kept rock and roll, because I felt like that was more of an interesting story, because most people don't hit that, and that's where I kind of like, that's what I'd like to read about. Like, where'd you fucking record this? Like, what was that like? You know, like, what? I already know you guys were doing fucking cocaine. Like, I don't need you to put that in there. That's already a fucking given. It was 1973. You know, it's like, we all know that. We know what that era was all about, you know? So it was like, a lot of the books that are out, they skip all the interest of the musicians. So my dad's book is very good. When I read it, it kept me glued. I actually, when I first got the first transcribed version from Martin, I didn't sleep. I stayed up all fucking night because I couldn't put it down. I was like, oh man, I was like, I need to go to bed. And I was like, ah, shit. I put my phone down, and then I was like grabbing the phone, because I'm like, well, what happened next with this? You know, now I'm interested, even though, you know, I know a lot of this stuff. There's things in here that there's part, you know, Martin really did a great job of interviewing and putting it together in words in a way that, you know, we were just all on the same page, and that it just showed. And I'm very excited about it. And I hope people take the time to read about a bass player's perspective of being in a huge band. Because I mean, like, regardless of financial status, like, my dad is obviously not even, Sammy's a very, very rich person. He's a multi-millionaire. My dad's a poor guy. I grew up not having all that much, man. I had to work. Like, it's just a different world. So I like his world more, because I could relate to it more, because I'm like you, man, just fucking working, trying to do what I'm doing, and that's it. I don't have fucking, you know, I don't have Lamborghini. I don't have fucking, you know, house in Maui, house in Cabo. We don't get, you know, those motherfuckers, they're always on vacation and shit, and that's all cool. No, nothing against what they're doing, but we don't fucking there's no family vacation, dog. That shit is like, maybe the book will get us there to where we could. I don't know, but anyway, I had to reach out, obviously, to Sammy to possibly write it forward. There was a couple people I had in mind, like I was telling you. Some people suggested I write it because, like, you know, my status in Haunt now is, you know, it's not huge, but I have enough recognition to where when people talk about new wave of traditional heavy metal 20 years from now, you almost have to talk about Haunt, because we're part of that, like, beginning evolution of the genre. So, you know, some people had kind of thrown that, and I talked to my dad a bit about it, and I was like, you know what? I was like, I'm going to go through all this shit. I had to talk to Martin. I got to be here. I had to set my dad up to be able to do interviews and get all the scheduling with Martin. And then also I'm overseeing I'm overseeing all the manufacturing myself and distribution myself, which is a lot, you know, it puts a lot on my plate. So I asked him, I said, you need to call Sammy, and you're going to ask him if, you know, let him know what's going on, tell him that we're doing this book. And I was like, I think he would be the best person for this forward, not only because more people will have eyes on it, more people will read it, but because of your guys' musical journey. Because a lot of it is with him. It basically ends at him. There's a little epilogue of stuff my dad did with some with some key dudes. It wasn't like my dad just didn't try, but when you're the bass player, you're very limited to what your options are after the success. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, what are you gonna do now? Because like, you can't be the front man. You're not the fucking guitar hero. You're the backbone guy. You're back there, you're laying down the fucking low end and making it heavy. But, you know, bassists are very generally, unless you're fucking Lemmy, you know, or Phil Lynott, which you're in the front man realm, right?
Well, not to discredit you on this, but I think Rudy Sarzo comes to mind as a guy that's like a prolific bass player that does get a lot of recognition.
Yes.
So there are some key players. Your dad is very, I would say, almost like an underground cult following kind of hero, in my opinion. You know, and in talking about the book, it's when you mentioned it earlier is like, you know, it's soap opera. That's kind of why I can't read Paul Stanley's book, because it's like it reads like everybody's shit stinks but mine. So like I kind of don't like books like that. So I think it's very genuine, and much like Haunt's music, again, very genuine way of doing this with the book and whatnot. Now, I'm generally curious, did you actually get Hagar to do the forward on this? And I'm assuming it was kind of to generate some clout and almost like some recognition for the book, almost as it's good for marketing purposes, I would say.
Absolutely. And again, because of the historical factor, because I mean, there's no better person that would know my dad as a musician than Sammy. They both started from nowhere, nobody's, to get to a point where they're playing, you know, they're opening up for Boston, who had one of the highest selling, you know, debut albums in the history at that time. That's no small feat, you know, like that's pretty, they're doing shit, you know, like shit was big for them. They're fucking killing it. So yeah, I mean, it a lot. And again, it was, you know, to kind of solidify, give my dad the recognition as well. You know, like this motherfucker deserves a forward by Sammy Hagar. You feel me? So there was a couple factors. There could have been some other people, and I had thought about a couple other dudes. That my dad, like, sadly, you know, one of them would have been Ronnie if he'd still been alive. Ronnie would have probably been my first pick, because him and my dad go back further than Sammy Hagar and my dad, because they played in Van Morrison together. So they were friends they were friends before Montrose, you know? So he would have been a key. I would have been like, fuck Sammy. Sorry, Sammy, if you have Sammy Hagar watching this, good job.
In due time, my friend, in due time. But
anyway, you know, I would prefer somebody like Ronnie, because again, he's a little bit more underground cult like my dad, but still very recognized name in heavy metal, killer guitar player. And again, like I said, it's like you have to almost get somebody that they need to know my dad in a way that it's deserving, you know, like somebody that has something good to say, that, you know, actually truly spent time with him. Another guy I thought about was, and this would have been great, and I did try to reach out and contact him, but I mean, like, people are it's just so hard. Was another guy I was thinking about as a forward was Ted Templeman, who
really did all the Sammy Hagar records and the Montrose.
He knew my dad during Van Morrison.
Sure.
So like Ted did the Van Morrison stuff, and then here it comes again, where it's like you got this brand new band Montrose, and Ronnie and my dad already know Ted, so there's this comfortable feeling in the studio because you're seeing an old friend, you know. And I think that goes a long way. Sammy never did any records with Ted. Sammy
That's not true at all. He did 3 Lock Box with, I believe, with Ted. So
no,
he did a couple.
Keith Olsen did those.
Oh, okay. I might have
But
misread
Ted might have been involved during 3 Lock Box for the beginning. I think what happened here, and I might be wrong, but I'm probably pretty spot on generally with this. I think they had started working with Ted on it, and it wasn't working out, and they went back with Keith Olsen.
I see.
Because I think David Geffen was very, very satisfied with Keith because Sammy Hagar finally had success. He had never had a gold record before. So Keith kind of brought that out of them. So I think that Keith did it. Are you able to look that up?
I'm trying to look it up right now. I could have sworn I thought Ted Templeman did 3 Lock Box because he did, or maybe it's what is it? The
VOA.
Yes, VOA.
He might have done. I think he might have done VOA. I know he didn't. I'm pretty certain he definitely didn't do Standing Hampton. I'm almost certain he didn't do 3 Lock Box, but I know that Keith was involved with like almost everything. But yeah, maybe Ted did come back. That's interesting. Now I'm thinking, I'm like, huh.
I have to look it up now. So anyway, so let me ask you about the Windows of Your Heart record. I do want to touch upon this during the interview because I know we got a lot to talk about. But I'm curious for you personally, like, give me the biggest challenge you had in terms of recording this specific record, getting the players involved, if any, or letting them know that, hey, I'm doing this, learn your parts kind of thing. But give me the biggest kind of challenge with recording this specific record.
Well, the challenge is doing, I didn't have anybody. I had no players on this one. So just like my last record, Beautiful Distraction, I only had a guest guitar player. On this one, I just decided not to have a guest guitar player because when I was putting the new live band together, we're having to go back and they were having to learn these solos that I couldn't show them what to do. So it was kind of like, I was like, I don't know if I should do this anymore because if I barely know my own shit, let alone what somebody else did, and having to go back, learn it and show it or anything like that. Luckily, I didn't have to do that. My new guitar player is fucking killer, and he just real professional. My whole new live band is they've been really fucking great at just holding me up and let me just do my thing. I think that at this time around, the big challenge for me was just really honestly like getting the new live band together during the time, because like obviously I was recording this last year. I was telling you earlier, I've been sitting on that one. I sat on it a while because I wanted to go on tour for the albums that I had released during COVID. I didn't want to just come fucking out the gate like, here's 3 albums of new songs, or just make it to where it's just too confusing for me in the set, uncomfortable, because we all know anytime you add something new, you kind of have to vibe it out, even if you like it on the record. Sometimes it just doesn't feel right with everything that you're doing within your set. So I wanted to get out there and see what worked from my last 2 albums and do an actual tour. So I sat on this longer than I normally would. I would have released it earlier this year, but it was finished. I had recorded the whole thing last year, and it was for me, it's really not that hard. This stuff is, I live for this kind of thing. The challenge is just getting it done, learning it, and being happy enough with it to let it go. I'd say the big difference with this one though is sadly, I had the artwork done for so long. He didn't really start working on it, and we didn't change the artwork, but Andy Lee, my new guitar player, did a lot of help mixing and mastering it with me. We worked together on it, and he's not credited, and I will fix that later, but we had talked about it. He's like, don't worry about it. And I was like, yeah, you'll be on the other ones. People will know. It's not you know, it's life or death. But that's like I said, the art was done before. I always have the art. I already have the art for the next record. The art's already done as soon as I have an idea. It's like done, you know. Anyway, but you know, it's one of those things. I'm starting to get to a point where it's like I could just pump these out because I'm just so used to the flow of just writing a song and playing all the parts. Like it's becoming it's second nature to me. It's like I'm born for it. So it's hard to not it's not that hard. I love the experience. The challenge is, I think the challenges come after the album of like having to tour, having to do all that stuff. That is much more challenging to me than doing an actual record. Doing a record, if you already know, I've done Burst in a Flame, If Icarus Could Fly, Mind Freeze, Flashback, Beautiful Distraction. I'm deep in it and we're not even adding Beastmaker stuff. So, I mean, you can't expect there to be much challenge for me where I've already been multi-instrumentalist many times, recorded in my own studio, I still don't think my shit sounds the best, but that's not exactly what I'm like. We were talking about demo shit earlier today. Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's not, but you know, it's not, if you recorded through some decent shit, it's going to sound all right. You could go back and you can make it sound good. You could actually reamp guitar. There's all kinds of shit you could do. If you have a dry signal, you could fucking doctor old shit up hella good, make it sound all right. But I'm just trying to, I've always kind of been like when it comes to recording stuff, I always kind of wanted to feel like you could be in the room with us and we're actually playing. Not
and this one definitely feels like it. By the way, Ted Templeman did do VOA. So
he did. Okay, so VOA, he didn't. The 3-lock box, he didn't do.
Right, I was wrong too. I admit when I'm wrong. So
we both. I mean, I had a feeling you were right as I started thinking about like, I was like, it wasn't. I just knew it wasn't 3-lock. Just knew it.
But let's just call each other. We were right if you put the two of us together.
Hey,
but,
you know what? You're only gonna realistically be 75% right in your conversation with somebody, anyways. If you went back and actually fact checked all the shit you said, it's probably like there's probably so many fucking things. You're just like, yeah, I fucking know it, and then you're like, oh shit, maybe I don't. But I like that we were able to fact check on the spot and actually get an answer because I feel relieved that you were right and I was right. That's a win-win right there.
That is a win-win. But so let me ask you this, because Haunt now to me seems very genuine in just with playing heavy metal in general, and I'm just curious how. And you're able to make a living off it. So how are you able to, what keeps you invested in the style of music just from a creative aspect? Because sometimes when money comes in, bands lose that creative kind of aspect. You know what I'm trying to get at?
Yeah, but the thing is I would be doing this anyway. So it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, all the money does for me is it just allows me to be able to continue on doing it in a manner where I could actually release stuff, you know, not like, oh shit, it's going to be like 2 years because I got my day job to deal with and then, you know, whatever. But I think that just like, for me, I've always just really been into old school music, everything, and just born too late. I'm just always in like kind of the wrong time. So I know that like this style of heavy metal is not where the money is, and most musicians, not saying like my caliber is high, but like I'm pretty good caliber musician, I'd say. I'm all right. You would think I would try to, you know, go do country or do something more poppy, or maybe, you know, follow the trends of things and this, you know, I don't know what drives people. I really honestly don't. Like for me, heavy metal is a challenge technically on guitar, which is always something that I need, is to always know that I'm trying to at least get better, or I know that I'm going to have to do something like that's not going to just be, you know, like when I get like right now I'm doing solos on my new album and it's just fucking kicking my ass, dude. Like today I was just getting beat up and like just didn't really get it. I honestly, today I didn't get anything done. I tried. Today it was like a failure in the studio. So, I mean, I take the solos as seriously as I take writing the song, even though it's only fucking 10 seconds, because I don't do those over embellished solos. I try to write something to kind of just to the point and over with. Like, you know, this, like, it gives the part something, you know, it differentiates the core, you know, the verse to the chorus. You know, you now have a nice bridge section that, you know, is you can play around with it a little bit, and that's kind of where, that's the only part where you get really kind of creative, as far as I feel. And I don't even really do it, but I think that's where a band could actually really use their more prog side, is during bridge sections. You got to keep that. I love a classic verse chorus, you know, something that grabs you and now you're hooked. But a good, like, you know, you could take it somewhere with the bridge. I have this song off of Mind Freeze called On the Stage, where like this, it just throw it in a completely different direction as far as what the bridge should sound like. We got, like, at that time I was working with John still, and even though I penned the whole song, I penned the bridge part around like a solo that we were talking about creating. You know, we're like, this, we need, you know, this bendy shit that you're doing. I was like, I fucking love that. We need to get into this a little bit more. And I'm going to give you a really strong background part to play over it. That's not like what we usually do. So I really do like a good bridge and whatnot.
So do you kind of apply that same formula to your vocal cadences and how you would even, you know, I don't know, say a line or record a line for the songs and whatnot? Do you kind of like to be like, oh, I really love this high note here or this low note here, I'm going to kind of embellish that a little bit more vocally speaking?
It's weird. Vocals are weird for me because like a lot of people get, you know, some, from what I've gathered from other bands with talking to them, you know, they spend quite a bit of time rehearsing parts and things like that. And for me, generally, like, I have the demo version, which actually is generally like whatever the track is that I'm working on is the actual track that goes on the album. But it's kind of that like first take of me, like I haven't even memorized my words. And what I do is I just basically listen to that a bunch. And I try to keep in mind like that I really want a band. I always wanted a band. I always liked bands where you sang along. And so I never wanted to be like so far outside of it to where I'm alienating people being able to do it, or even like grab them, or have it to where it's understood, the words are clear. So I kind of took a little bit more of like a Blue Oyster Cult approach with the vocal, and not necessarily what Eric does in Blue Oyster Cult, but more of the range where he's at. It's like a higher range, but it's not high. Like you're gonna have to yell to get there. You can't just do it under your breath. You know what I mean? So I just generally try to find something that works cohesively with my words, just like flowing, more than I listen for notes, because like I want the words to be captured, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, your approach is almost like Ozzy Osbourne's. I hear a lot of Ozzy influence in your vocals per se, and I could be completely wrong, but it just seems like how he delivers his vocals are kind of the same approach that you take. Especially with this record, especially with the last two songs, especially for, Frozen in Time and Defender, I thought were really kind of almost classic sounding heavy metal, but also, they're great ways to end the record on a strong note. Like these are stronger pieces of music, I think, on this record for me personally, when listening to it. So even your choice of song placement, I think, was really done well on this particular record. So,
thank you,
I think that's something to be very proud of.
You want to know my process of doing that?
What's up?
My process of picking what goes where.
I love that shit. Dude.
I don't even do, there is none.
Oh, okay.
However I recorded it, that's basically how it's structured. Generally, there might be one change, and the only reason I would change it is if they're in the same key. I wouldn't put them back to back. I wouldn't put a song that's in A right next to another song in A.
Interesting.
I would move it, but generally, however, the first song I write is usually basically the album. This album was originally going to be called Mercenaries, and it was a collective change between me and Jarvis from Night Demon, who we collaborated for the release on this one. And I don't think he was buying into what I was trying to sell too hard on the album cover, because he kept going, "You sure?" Because it was blue. I thought it was great. I wish I would go back now and actually change it back, because it's always going to be on the back of my mind. And I'm not saying that it was a bad idea. Like, overall, it's fine. It is what it is. It's just another album. I'm going to have plenty more to do my own thing. So it kind of shifted up a little bit. And but Mercenaries was the first song I wrote for the album. Like, it's the first thing where it's like, I have a new song, it's done, I have the whole thing finished, it's penned, there's a guitar solo, it's all there. And so that kind of started the record, you know what I mean? So that's like the first one, and then I start going down the line. I have a fucking huge folder of riffs and ideas, and I just start picking at them and putting them in that session.
Very unorthodox way of putting together a record, I will say, man.
Is it? I don't know. Everybody's process.
I've never heard it. I've never heard that. So usually, well, I mean, I only can speak from what I've kind of done with my musical career, but I always like generally putting a strong song first, a strong song last, and then filling in the gaps on what's gonna kind of take the listener on a journey. That's kind of how I structure it. I call it the Master of Puppets way, because literally that album does that for me every single time. Takes me on a journey.
I will say this: there's a reason that I guess my way is unorthodox, is because I actually don't know shit. I don't know what fucking song is good. Like, honestly, I mean, that's an honest answer. It's weird because on this one, I have a fan club on Facebook. We have like a group, the Haunt Fan Club. Anybody that watches this should join it, because we don't just talk about Haunt, it's everything, and I'm incredibly active on it. It's the only social media I really do, because I've become friends with all my fans. It's kind of wild. But anyway, I asked them, I'm like, what's your guys' favorite jam? And everybody's been saying this song Catch Me. And I hated it. I hate the guitar solo in it. It bothers me so much. Like, the thing is like, you can't, I don't believe you could force something out of you. So whatever came out naturally is what was supposed to go there. Like, sure. That's just my approach. And again, I don't have the same goals as other bands of having this sonic fucking huge produced thing. I just want them to get Trevor, and that's like, you're getting what I'm hearing, seeing, playing, feeling, and that's that. One, I wouldn't even, I like I said, like, I would have even never thought that, like, when I'm working on this record, like, I would have been like, man, this fucking song is shit. But apparently I should have put it first. Because if we go that way of like what people are really, where they're diving into, maybe it would have been, who knows? I have no fucking clue. And again, I can't even sit here and pretend like I know what the best song is. How am I to just, like, I can't tell you, man. I treat all these songs the same. I do my best, and that's it. Like, if it doesn't come through in that way, it's maybe, sometimes you don't write a fucking killer song, or you fucked it by not you know, like you could go back and go, I should have done this there, or I could have done this. But you weren't vibing that at that time. So
Right.
you got to take it. In my mind, you just move that to the next album. The thing that you didn't do, now do it.
I think you got kind of lucky or were fortunate on this one, because definitely Mercenaries is a strong opening track, and then Defenders is a strong closing track. So again, I think, I don't know, I mean, if you told me that you you know, did it on purpose, I would have believed you. So
yeah, I wish it was purposeful. I mean, we actually talked about it, and then I was telling Jarvis, I was like, I don't really like to do these track listings, bro. And he's like, I'm gonna listen to it. I'll get back to you. And then like I was like, what do you think? He's like, we're good. I was like, I don't think. I don't think it could, like, I don't know how it could play any better. You already bounced it out, and it's already in that sequence. It just kind of like, I mean, if it worked, and like I said, like, I generally won't put two songs side to side that are in the same key, so it doesn't, you know, it kind of offsets everything by not doing that right out the gate.
Sure. Now let me. I'm gonna branch into a completely different territory with you on this one. So I'm generally curious. We talked off the record about preserving, you know, your certain eras of the band's career, especially the demo era and live shows. And I'm just curious, is there, I don't think Han has ever done a live album. Is there potential for a full blown kind of live record? And how would you like to approach doing one?
So I've already been trying to plan this out a little bit, and obviously I had some complications because the band I was originally working with are no longer with me. So I've had to hire on new guys, and like, we got to go back out. Now we have to be a band together out on the road and hold each other up. And, you know, it's a different scenario with me, because like, you know, my band, they're like paid musicians, because like, they're not really a part of the creative anything. You know what I mean? So we had, like, going out there, we kind of had to, I had to like feel it out, see how I play with these guys, see if we're becoming, like, we're all good. And this last tour we just did was great. Everybody, we got along fucking splendidly, and I'm really liking everybody. And it's been a really, actually trying to, like, you know, I feel like I'm like Dave Mustaine in the sense of like, all right, I got to have a new band now, you know, like, it's a kind of a fucking crazy thing, but it concerned me not, because the music will never change, because it's always been my vision, my product, and nobody's put their fucking 2 cents in it, really. You know what I mean? So I was just more concerned that I was going to find guys that I liked enough to, like, really, because you know, it's a production doing a live album. You're literally, it's like, this is it. And I wanted to make sure we had the, like, right vibe. We're doing the right set together. The music feels right. And I've now, since we got this one under our belt, and we're about to go on another one in September, and our practices are awesome. I'm like, it's just been, I don't want to curse myself by saying smooth sailing, but it's been very easy to transition to it. Like, we went and played our first show after COVID and all this shit, and I felt like I had never left the stage. Like, I felt so there's so much. I was so confident in everybody, even though it was sloppy for sure. I definitely, like, you know, we got tighter. We filmed the shows too, so we see what we kind of were getting an idea out there on the road, what it would be like, what it's going to sound like. But the real thing is just trying to figure out where to do it. I think we're gonna do it here in town at this place I love called Strummers. We can just plug right into the soundboard, put our computer right in there, and get all the tracks. And but the main thing for me is actually, I wanted to more of like the live album thing. I want it to be like, I want a live video. Because like a band like Haunt, we just don't get a lot of good video footage, and I hate music videos. So I'm just kind of, it's a tough situation, and we don't really have anything of like super good quality out there. And so, yeah, live album is definitely something that we are going to be diving into probably in 2023, 2024. Depends on how everything really goes. We got tours booked, you know, for 2023 already. So it's like already got to kind of plan out like, all right, when are we going to do this and actually just do it? I got to get my dad's book done. I want to finish up this record. I got to ship all the Windows of Your Heart shit. I got this tour in September. We're turning around doing another tour in April. So I'm going to be getting ready for the next album release during that time. So it's like trying to figure out an area and an avenue to like, you know, I also, because like part of me, I want to do something rad in Fresno. So this record release show would be like of other bands that we would record. It would be like a show. It wouldn't just be Haunt. You know what I'm saying? Like it'd be a full on, like, this is the show. We were putting on like this thing, like 3 bands, 4 bands, probably 3. And everybody gets some audio and video out of it.
Now, would you potentially, from a marketing standpoint, would you potentially like to do like a DVD CD thing, or like a almost like a bundle, so you get the visual and the audio aspect?
Yeah, it's such a weird thing. I'm not 100%. That's like, I haven't really thought about the DVD scenario, because it's like, to me, like, I don't even fucking watch DVDs anymore. I'm like, do people actually buy DVDs still? Like, I don't know, because I just don't. This is a world that it's gone now. We used to have to buy DVDs. Let's face it. But now everything's on fucking YouTube. You can buy it. I buy stuff on Amazon because, you know, they gives you that option. Because sometimes there's just ain't some shit on there. For instance, like Anvil, Story of Anvil. Like, you have to buy it. It's not, you can't stream it anywhere. But it's so cheap, and it's fucking Anvil. Like buying a DVD, you're gonna have to drop like $20. Buying it online is $9.99. You know, the only difference is you can't hold it. So I'm not 100% sure. I don't know how I feel about that yet. Definitely vinyl, definitely YouTube. I feel like that's kind of the thing. Maybe a DVD. Like I said, I just don't know the DVD market anymore. If there is one, like, is it just more convenient to stream? You know?
I always say the more content out there, the better. That's all. That's what I was trying to get at. So it just depends how you look at things. And I think the more shit you have out there, the better, because that's your legacy. Unfortunately.
Yeah, you could do like, we'll do a very limited pressing a DVD, maybe do like 100 and have them signed by the bands.
Right.
Like
exactly.
Like that, like, sure, but going on a big scale of it, like marketing it as a DVD and all that, I don't know if like to put the kind of money you would need to get it, the cost down to something that couldn't be more exclusive. You know, I'm going to be sitting on a pile of DVDs and having no idea if people actually buy fucking DVDs.
Sure. Now let's venture into another territory with speaking with Haunt. Lyrically speaking, I'm generally curious. You've done, oh my gosh, I can't even keep up with this at this point. 7 albums,
Yeah.
5 at this point. So I'm generally curious, will we ever see a concept album from Haunt, especially lyrically speaking, with where you put kind of certain songs in a specific order that tells a story?
I haven't gone there yet. Like I've said this in the past, probably not. But as I've been getting a little bit more into Bruce Lee, I should never say that I'm not going to do something, because I might end up wanting to do something like that. It really, like right now, I could definitively say I'm not doing a concept record anytime soon. Mainly because I feel like I'm just kind of like I'm just like a Bob Dylan kind of like songwriter. I'm not really. I only write what I feel in that moment. The concept is more like science fiction, fantasy, where I really haven't really gone. Like I kind of stick more into reality, and maybe you could put reality into it, but I mean, I don't know how much interest, like, I don't know. It could be interesting. You never know where you're going to have your lyrical vision comes from. I've always I've always been really into how like John Lennon and Paul McCartney kind of just like, they're like, get up, we write a song every day. And when you kind of have that mentality, it's hard to really conceptualize concept album, because you're so focused on just keeping because it keeps you fresh, man. Like if you're like, I feel like writer's block happens because you're not creating enough. You're not massaging the muscle. So I look at it as like you're massaging it like as much as you can. And, you know, you're able to like just write. And a concept, I feel like another thing with the concept record is a lot of the time that I feel like it's better in a collaborative band where like ideas could melt into one weird fucked up dream. So for me, it's like Haunt doesn't really have that. Like it's not collaborative, and I haven't even met anybody that like I've wanted to collaborate as a singer. I find myself collaborating with other people as something else. Drummer mainly. I've drummed on quite a few records. Last year I drummed on Saber Without Warning. I did their 7-inch and I did their full-length record. And then I also played drums on this band called Oath, SC for Scotland. They're called Oath. Computer Warrior is the album. And then I have a side project with Joe Steele from Ice War called Devil Cross, where I play drums. So I feel like a little bit more comfortable letting other people's ideas come forth instead of me, you know, like I get to produce it. So like, you know what I mean? Like I have a little control over it, but very little. I like them to kind of bring it too. But I just still really, I haven't found that area yet. Maybe it's because that you have to be able to physically touch them, see them, be with them. I haven't really gotten into the guitar lyrical thing, because that's where I feel like that's where the like a concept record would kind of have to be born in that light. And it might not be Haunt, but you know, like I just have a lot of different projects that I work on and love being in the studio. So it's like I probably will at some point it'll probably just fall into my lap where a concept record happens.
I love it. Well, lastly, let's keep this one kind of short and sweet here, and give me where people can find Windows of Your Heart. Where can people find it and support the band?
Hauntthenation.bandcamp.com. You know that's my spot for right now. But I will tell you, and we'll talk about this on the next record, that might be changing a little bit. I might be shifting into some new area that gets me away from Bandcamp a little bit. I have some concern with
the buyout. Are you talking the buyout with the gaming?
Not just the buyout. It's the percentage of money they get and what little they do.
Gotcha.
So it's not. I just feel like for me, because like for other people, they have record deals and they're every band has their own thing. But for Haunt, the Bandcamp gives us direct support, and that's been fundamental. So that's where people should go to get it. Nothing, like I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying it's just like there's a buyout from Epic Games, so maybe the mission statement changes. I'm looking for improvements. You know what I mean? I'm like, you guys are like, they're like the fucking IRS of music to me, because 10% is fucking basically I'm getting taxed. So I definitely want the site needs to be updated. It hasn't been basically ever. Their player fucking sucks. Their mobile app blows. Their artist mobile app blows. You can't really do anything from your phone with ease. And so I'm like, if you're getting a good chunk of change, I mean, I'm giving them enough because you can't really get my stuff anywhere else. So I do okay. So to me, I'm like, what are you fucking bringing to the table here, motherfuckers? Like, what's up? But anyway, but that's where you go to get the stuff. And the best thing to do is follow me on social media, Haunt the Nation. That's my tag for Instagram and Facebook. And if you want to like connect with me on a personal level, the Haunt Fan Club page, if you just look up in the groups, you put Haunt Fan Club, boom, it'll bring you right to it. You'll see the logo. Actually, one of the members in the fan club designed the layout of everything. It's like all the album covers together. It's really cool. So there's a lot that happens in there that is not Haunt related. We talk about all kinds of stuff, music, no politics, nothing like that. We talk about guitars, we talk about weed, we talk about movies, books, like, and everybody knows to kind of like talk. So that's the best place to like really, if you want to support Haunt, like go over there, go to my social media so you know where to get it direct. There will always be a link shop button that takes you to where you need to get my stuff. I don't have one on Spotify because I haven't really set up with Shopify yet, but the more I start looking at Shopify, I'm actually starting to think they're a pretty good platform because they're just like basically a subscription monthly thing where I feel like that's where Bandcamp needs to fucking go, because like if they're not going to do anything, they shouldn't be able to get into your wallet as deep as they get.
Sure.
You know? Because they're not,
Sure.
like I said, it's like there's so many fucking platforms out there where somebody puts credit card information in and they buy something. You know, it's like, so why, you know, I knew this day was coming eventually, you know, like I always knew this. The day I started using them, I'm like, one day I'm going to be trying to get out from underneath their thumb, but that day's not now, you know, and nothing against them. I think they've helped me so much in my career that I would never not use them. You know what I'm saying? It's just stuff. There's going to be less stuff on there in due time. You're going to get direct and more direct. So, you know, touring and stuff costs a lot of fucking money.
It's true, man. Well, Trevor, I want to thank you again always for gracing your presence on the show and giving me the opportunity. I always love talking with you. Always love promoting what you do. And especially, you know, I'm a big fan of Haunt, as you know. So, you know, thanks again for all that you do. And for another episode of Poppitt's Corner, guys, we're out of here. Cheers.
Guys, later.